Now let's talk about social conflict theory. Social conflict theory rose out of criticism of the structural functionalists. The first thing they disagreed on was that conflict can be avoided. Conflict is inevitable. It is part of the human dynamic. It is part of the social structure. It is not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes conflict is necessary to bring about social change. If we just keep going along to get along when rules aren't fair, how do they change? Somebody has to push against the norm. Someone has to break the rules in order for the rules to change. So, the social conflict theorists would suggest that you break the rules, especially when the rules aren't fair. So, why is it that we have so much conflict in our society? They argue that we have conflict because of competition. The majority of us are competing for a scarcity of resources. Have you ever heard this statistic before? 1% of the population holds, let me see if I can adjust this. There we go. 1% of the population holds 80% of the wealth. That means that for every dollar earned, 83% of that dollar goes to the richest 1%. So, how is it that the remaining 99% of us are struggling for about 20% of the resources? What is happening with this group here that causes them to have such a small, paltry part of the wealth? Well, it has a lot to do with ideology. And when we talk about groups and organizations, we're going to talk about ideology and how that gets in the way of wealth distribution. Okay, so they argue, and again, I'm glancing at the notes to make sure I cover everything that you need me to cover, so I explain every point. But the central question for them is who benefits from these rules? Well, the richest 1%. They argue that this group here, the richest and most powerful people in our society, will do whatever it takes to maintain power and protect their own interests. And oftentimes in class, I'll ask students, well, how do they do that? What is it that the richest 1% control that helps them control everything else? And inevitably, someone will say, well, they control the laws, how the laws are made. Now, which body of government in the United States, we've got 3 branches of government, which body is responsible for passing the laws? The legislative branch. So one of the ways the richest 1% controls the social structure and protects their own interest and maintain power is through campaign contributions. They make it rain on their favorite political candidate. And because of the Supreme Court's passing of Citizens United, wealthy people and corporations can contribute even more money now to political candidates. So while they'll make promises to help the middle class and the working class and the poor, oftentimes many of them get in office and they look out for the richest 1%. So they control them through campaign finance. One of the things the conflict theorists also agree on is that society is an arena of inequality. If you want to identify the conflict theory perspective on an exam or a quiz or something, look for something that speaks to inequality. Social class inequality, gender inequality, racial inequality, inequality based on sexual orientation. Because for them, society exists as the haves versus the have-nots, the powerful exploiting the powerless.